What began as a playful exchange on a popular late-night talk show turned into something no one could have predicted. Under bright studio lights of an evening with celebrities, the audience was expecting laughter, not tears. On one couch, Hollywood icon Will Smith leaned back, charismatic as ever. Opposite him sat President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso, calm, composed, dressed in an unassuming suit that looked almost out of place among the designer jackets and dazzling dresses. The host, in high spirits, decided to stir up some friendly banter. So, well, ever think about running for president? You'd have to go up against this guy. The crowd chuckled. Will played along, flashing his trademark grin. Well, I'd at least bring a little style to the table. No offense, President Traoré, but it looks like your tailor quit halfway through. The audience roared. It was a kind of harmless joke late-night shows thrive on. Traoré smiled faintly. He knew Will meant no harm, but the atmosphere shifted as he leaned in slightly. Hands folded together, eyes fixed gently on Will. The laughter faded until there was only silence. Then, in a voice steady but soft, he spoke. It wasn't just his words that quieted the room. It was the raw truth behind them. "I don't wear power, Mr. Smith," Traoré began, his tone warm yet piercing. "I carry it." The room stilled. He glanced toward the audience, then back at Will. In Burkina Faso, we have villages where children study under trees, where mothers give birth by candlelight, where kids walk miles barefoot to learn. If I wore a $5,000 suit, I'd be stealing from them. The crowd smiles faded. Will's grin faltered too, his eyes searching the president's face for a hint of a joke. But there was none. Traoré continued, "You make stories that help the world laugh, cry, and think. I carry the burden of lives that depend on every choice I make, even the quiet ones." A pin could have dropped. The laughter was replaced by a silence, so thick it felt holy. If style could heal a sick child or fix a broken hospital, I'd dress in gold every day. But my people need more than suits. His words lingered like an echo. Will sat back, the weight of the truth settling on his shoulders. Something in him shifted. His eyes watered before he could stop it. He looked down, then away, but the cameras caught it. The world caught it. Within hours, that moment spread across every screen. The headline was simple. Will Smith moved to tears by President Traoré's powerful truth? After the taping, the mood backstage was heavy, but not awkward. It was reflective. Will sat alone, sipping water, staring at nothing. A producer approached, hesitated, then asked, "You okay?" Will nodded, his eyes still distant. He'd been in countless interviews, but this was different. This time, he'd been humbled. Online, the 90-second clip was unstoppable. 1 million views within 2 hours. But more than clicks, it was the comments that told the real story. One user wrote, "That wasn't a comeback. That was wisdom wrapped in grace." Another said, "I showed this to my son. We cried together. Dignity looks like this." Backstage, Will finally rose, took a deep breath, and found Traoré quietly reading a small worn book. He cleared his throat. "Mr. President." Traoré looked up, his face kind. Will's voice cracked. "I needed that. Thank you." The two men shook hands, one from Hollywood, one from a distant corner of Africa. And in that moment, the world saw something bigger than a viral clip. They saw respect. They saw truth. By sunrise, the story was everywhere. News anchors replayed the clip. Influencers stitched their tearful reactions. Outlets that never mentioned Burkina Faso were suddenly talking about it with respect. The simple phrase, "when dignity spoke," the world listened, trended across continents. In Burkina Faso, people gathered around radios in small shops, in classrooms, in dusty village squares. They heard their president's voice over and over. Farmers, elders, children, they didn't just hear a leader. They heard a father, humble yet unshakable. Meanwhile, in the U.S., Will posted a video from his living room. "Last night, I made a joke. President Traoré gave me truth. I've met kings, presidents, legends, but this one hit different." His voice broke again, and the world saw it was real. But beneath the headlines and hashtags, something deeper was happening. Something that would quietly ripple far beyond a single TV moment. The president's words were planting seeds in hearts that needed to remember what real leadership looked like. In a small hospital in Ouagadougou, 11-year-old Muna was fighting leukemia. Curled up in her bed, she watched the clip with her mother on a borrowed phone. Her eyes sparkled through the pain. "Mama, he's not like the others," she whispered. She scribbled a few words with trembling hands. "Can we send this to him?" A nurse, moved by her bravery, posted a photo of the note online. "She has days left," the nurse wrote, "but she wanted her president to know he made her proud." The note read, "Dear President Traoré, I'm sick, but when I saw you, I forgot my pain for a moment. You spoke like a papa. Thank you. I wish I could hug you." By noon, her letter had millions of likes. In New York, at the Burkina Faso embassy, Traoré sat quietly as an aide showed him the post. He didn't speak for a long moment, then stood and said simply, "Cancel my next meeting. I need call a child." In a tiny hospital room thousands of miles away, a phone rang. Muna's mother answered, her voice shaking. And in that instant, far from the studio lights and viral clips, the power of calm truth met the softest heart, reminding the world that sometimes leadership is not about the suit you wear, but a life you touch when you wear none at all. "Yes, hello?" A warm, steady voice filled the small hospital room. Muna's mother froze, eyes wide. "Madam, this is President Ibrahim Traoré. May I please speak to your daughter?" The nurse clasped her hand over her mouth. Muna's tiny eyes, tired but bright, widened in disbelief. The president's voice softened. "Hello, Muna. What's your favorite color?" She giggled through her pain, whispering, "Yellow like sunshine." He asked about her favorite food, rice with peanut sauce. She giggled again, fighting a cough. "Are you really the man from TV?" she asked shyly. Traoré let out a small, kind laugh. "Yes, little one. But more importantly, I'm your friend." Tears slipped down the cheeks of everyone in that small room. In that moment, he wasn't president. He was a father figure for a child who needed one. "You know," he said, his voice cracking just slightly, "you've done more than many grown-ups ever will. You reminded the world about kindness. You are stronger than me, Muna." They talked a little more, her voice drifting in and out like a fragile flame. When they hung up, Ibrahim sat in silence, staring out a window at the New York skyline. But in his mind, he was back in that tiny hospital room in Ouagadougou, next to a little girl with a lion's heart. That night, he made a decision that turned a viral clip into something bigger, a movement. He wouldn't just be a trending moment. He would be a reason. Back at the studio, after the cameras cut, the air hung heavy. Will Smith lingered by the curtain, hands trembling. The echo of Traoré's calm words looped in his mind like a song he couldn't turn off. A few crew members shuffled by, eyes low, unsure what to say. He finally stepped forward, voice low but clear. "You meant every word, didn't you?" Ibrahim looked at him, the corners of his eyes kind. "I don't speak to impress, Will. I speak because truth should be lived, not performed." There were no cameras, no applause, just two men. One who carried the world's laughter, the other who carried its burdens. Traoré leaned in, his eyes searching. "You've given the world so many reasons to laugh, Will, but have you ever given it permission to see your pain?" The question cracked something deep inside the Hollywood star. He nodded, fighting tears. It wasn't about the joke anymore. It was about being seen for who he really was. Outside, thousands of phones were already sharing the clip. But what happened next wouldn't be about likes or headlines. It would be about hearts quietly healing. In Philadelphia, Will's mother, Caroline, watched the viral moment alone in her living room. She'd seen her son make billions smile. But this time it was different. She texted him, "You've made movies, baby, but tonight you made meaning. That man reminded me of your father. Calm, firm, kind. Don't lose this moment." We'll read her message over and over. "You made meaning." It landed in a place he thought was long buried. Tears rolled down his face. Tears he hadn't let himself cry since he was a boy. That night, for the first time in years, Will opened his phone's notes app and began to write. Not a joke, not a script, a letter. A simple letter to the man who'd pierced his armor. The next morning, he posted it to Instagram alongside a photo of President Traoré standing quietly backstage. President Traoré, you didn't clap back. You didn't joke. You gave me truth. In your stillness, I saw my storms. In your dignity, I saw my doubts. You reminded me, and maybe reminded the world, that a man's strength isn't proven by force or flash, but by how he carries truth. Thank you. I'm learning and I'm listening. The post exploded. Celebrities shared it. Politicians commented. Parents used it to teach their children. In Ouagadougou, Traoré's office was flooded with letters. But one stood out. It wasn't from a VIP, but from a small boy in Harlem. In shaky pencil, the last line read, "I want to be calm like you when people laugh at me." President Traoré folded the paper, then looked up at his aides, his eyes misty but resolute. "This isn't about a TV moment anymore," he said quietly. "Something is waking up across the ocean." Hundreds of miles away in Brooklyn, 12-year-old Marcus sat on the edge of his bed. He'd been pushed at school that day, mocked for his worn-out shoes. That night, his mom scrolled her phone, then handed it to him. The video played. Traoré's calm voice. "The world does not need louder men. It needs quieter hearts with deeper truths." Marcus replayed that line 10 times, his eyes wide, his chest tight. He pulled out his battered notebook from under his pillow and wrote, "Dear Mr. Traoré, today I was laughed at, but I didn't scream. I remembered your voice. I think that made me strong." He didn't know if he'd ever send it, but just writing it brought him peace. For the first time in weeks, Marcus slept soundly through the night. The next day, that letter did reach Ibrahim Traoré's desk. He read Marcus's words 3 times, each line weighing more than the last. He turned to his aide, voice barely above a whisper. "We lead nations," he said, "but sometimes we just need to hold one child's pain." Without hesitation, he ordered a call. That evening, Marcus was summoned to the counselor's office. He panicked. What had he done? When they handed him the phone, he heard a calm voice. "Hello, Marcus. This is President Traoré. I read your letter." Marcus froze, eyes filling. "You're stronger than many adults I know. And today, you gave me hope." The boy cried, not loud, but soft and shaking, the way you do when someone finally sees you. The following day, far from cameras and headlines, Will Smith arrived quietly in Ouagadougou. No entourage, no press release, just Will in simple clothes, carrying the weight of lessons learned. When Traoré saw him at the palace door, he didn't wave to the cameras. He simply opened his arms. In that silent embrace, the world didn't see a movie star or a politician. It saw 2 men who had reminded each other what truth looks like when spoken with courage, and what healing feels like when it's shared. Traoré smiled warmly. "I didn't expect Hollywood to walk in so humbly," he teased. Will let out a quiet laugh, but his eyes were serious. "I came because what you said didn't just touch me, it changed me." They sat side by side under a wide shade tree in the courtyard of a local school in Ouagadougou. Children ran barefoot in the dirt, laughing and kicking a battered soccer ball, blissfully unaware that 2 men, one a movie star, the other a president, were quietly rewriting what dignity looks like. Will unfolded a piece of paper, its edges worn soft by his hands. "This is every apology I owe," he said, voice rough. "From fame, from anger I carried into rooms that didn't deserve it." Traoré read the list of names, nodding gently. "Healing doesn't start when we fix the world," he said. "It starts when we tell the truth to ourselves." A little girl with big, curious eyes skipped over, holding a single wilted flower she'd picked from behind the fence. She offered it to Will with a shy smile. He knelt, took it in both hands like a priceless treasure. There were no cameras for this moment, no rehearsed lines, no stage lights. Just 2 men, and a reminder that sometimes the purest moments are the quietest. In a tiny barbershop on the dusty edge of Ouagadougou, a flickering old TV replayed that fateful talk show moment for 20th time. Young men, some barefoot, leaned in so close their breath fogged the screen. Idris, the youngest, wiped his eyes. "This is the first time I've seen a president speak with his soul," he whispered. The old barber, blade in hand, nodded. He didn't just speak to Will. He spoke to all of us who have been laughed at for being quiet, for being different. When the TV finally clicked off, nobody spoke for a while. Not because there was nothing to say, but because they had all just seen something real in a world that often feels cold. 2 days later, a handwritten envelope arrived at the Burkina Faso embassy in Los Angeles. Inside was a letter, soft and raw. Jada Pinkett Smith's name was scribbled at the bottom. "Dear President Traoré," she wrote, "I don't think you know what you did, not just for Will, but for millions of men who've never been told that dignity isn't about domination. You reminded the world that calm is not weakness. It's a quiet kind of power. We needed that more than we knew." Traoré read the letter alone in his hotel room that night. He folded it carefully and tucked it into his old leather journal. Closing it, he whispered to his aide, "We don't need louder speeches. We need louder silences and deeper actions." And somehow, that's exactly what happened. Across continents, the clip of his simple words subtitled into Mandarin, Arabic, Portuguese, Swahili, Spanish. It wasn't trending because of celebrity gossip. It was spreading because it felt like truth had finally found a voice. University professors analyzed it. Psychologists wrote think pieces. Mosques and churches used it in sermons about humility. People weren't just watching. They were pausing, reflecting. One late-night comedian who'd mocked the exchange on air the first night came back days later, no punchlines in sight. "I thought it was just another awkward TV moment," he admitted to his audience. "But I see now it was history, and I'm sorry for missing it." In a small village on the outskirts of Ouagadougou, a primary school painted new letters over its humble library door. "The House of Quiet Truth, dedicated to President Ibrahim Traoré." The moment had outgrown Will Smith. It had outgrown television. It had become a mirror for a world desperate to remember that respect doesn't shout. It whispers, then acts. 3 days later, Will made an unexpected appearance on a quiet daytime show in New York. No scripted lines, no bright set, just a chair, a microphone, and a man clearly stripped of the showman's mask. His voice cracked. "I've spent my life trying to make the world laugh, but I've never had a moment stop me the way he did. When President Traoré looked at me, it was like he saw a straight-through performance, not just mine, but the one we all wear every day." He paused. The room was so quiet you could hear breaths catching. He reminded me that real strength isn't power. It's peace. By the time he stood up, there wasn't an eye in the studio dry. That night, Traoré's assistant burst into his office in Ouagadougou. "Mr. President, it's from Will." The email was short, stripped of celebrity shine. "I've spoken with my heart to the world. But now, I'd like to speak to yours. I want to come to Ouagadougou, not as an actor, just as a man." Traoré looked out his window at the humming city below. He smiled, soft and knowing. Let him come. Let him see where real truth grows, not in palaces, but in pain. By sunrise, Will was on a plane. No entourage. No cameras waiting on the tarmac. Just Traoré himself, standing by an old battered car, in a plain shirt, hand extended. The two men embraced without words. Their eyes said everything. Two lives that had run parallel for decades had found each other at a single point, and neither would ever be the same. On the 6th day, the two men stepped onto a makeshift stage in the courtyard of a youth center in the heart of Ouagadougou. No teleprompters, just raw hearts. Will spoke first. His voice was strong but gentle. This man didn't clap back. He didn't humiliate me. He showed me and all of us what dignity looks like when the world expects pride. He paused, the crowd holding its breath. If you're watching this, ask yourself, when was the last time you listened with your heart? Traoré stepped forward. His voice, quiet as always, carried through the heat and the noise of children laughing in the distance. We don't heal by mocking each other. We heal by recognizing the wounds in each other. There was no applause, just tears and silence, the kind that says, we see it, we feel it. The clip of that moment traveled faster than the original. Within 24 hours, 40 million views. Not for scandal, not for gossip, but because in a fractured, noisy world, people had seen something true. Dear reader, if this story moved your heart, if you felt even one tear well up, subscribe, like, and comment below. Not just for numbers, but so this reminder of calm dignity, and truth reaches another tired soul. Tell us, what line touched you the most? And let this be more than just a video. Let it be the beginning of a world that finally listens with its heart.